today, and let's write this down. Please excuse my dear aunt.
Salad, sound. Soda.
Actually, it should be like this. Let me change this.
Excuse my dear salad.
Excuse my dear aunt Sally. And the reason for writing that down is their first letters, because it's a little mnemonic device, way to memorize or to remember the way that you need to do problems that have more than one order of operation in them. And you need to write, here is the way that needs to be done. The first thing you have to do is, the P stands for parentheses. Now, I must warn you on this, okay? Not necessarily parentheses, but it needs to be grouping symbols. Did I spell parentheses right? Am I right or wrong? Better? In other words, it doesn't have to be, are you sure? It doesn't have to be parentheses, they're both E's. Thank you very much. It doesn't have to be parentheses, it can be any grouping symbol. We have a bunch of different types of grouping symbols. You have parentheses as one type, you have brackets, and you have my favorite, which is the brace. Kind of this little whatever looking thing. Those are also grouping symbols. By the way, a fraction, bar, slash line is also a grouping symbol. Okay, those need to be done first, but for all intents and purposes right now, we're just going to say parentheses and that'll get us there. After parentheses, then you have to think about doing exponents and roots. Okay, those are the little numbers and the little square roots and the cubes and all that sort of stuff. Then, after that, you need to do multiplication and division. And notice that multiplication and division fit on the same line. Okay, you don't do division before multiplication and you don't do multiplication before division. What you do, okay, is when you're given a choice, you have to work from left to right. And we'll talk about this a little later. You have to work from left to right. And the same thing is true for the last two. Aunt Sally stands for addition and subtraction. And those also get worked on from left to right. They fall on the same level. But the last thing you'll do is add and subtract things together. Okay, you need to get those in your head, and then we'll talk about this. Please excuse my dealing with Sally.
Okay.
Give you a chance to do that, and then we'll actually look at a problem here. These, by the way, I like these problems. Some problems I don't necessarily care for. I like these because they're just, to me, a little bit of fun. And here's an example. 20 minus 2 times 3 squared plus parentheses 7 plus 8 divided by 5. And let me go on record as saying, believe it or not, I know there's a certain faction of you that like to cut corners and like to skip steps just because you think, I don't know what you're thinking, but just because you think speed is of some sort of importance here. This is not one of those where I will be very graceful to you if you are just skipping steps. Because really, if you start skipping steps, your chances of getting these problems right are going to diminish greatly. So I will need to, number one, see you have this written down exactly as it appears in the book. Okay? And then I would like each line to be each level of the order of operations. In other words, level number 1 is parentheses. So you do the parentheses, in which case is right here. But in addition to that, you rewrite this whole thing. It's 20 minus 2 times 3 squared plus parenthesis is 15 divided by 5. I have now done the please part. Next, I have to do the excuse part, which is the exponents and
It's
roots.
divided by 5, not 15.
Oh, great. Okay, so there's this one here that is the exponent, so now you end up with 20 minus 2 times 9 plus 15 divided by 5. Okay, there's the exponents. Now you do the multiplication and the division from left to right. This would be the one you do first. This it doesn't really matter here, but it does in other places. So I would go with 20 minus 18 plus 3.
Wait.
Did I do something wrong?
No.
Then to the my dear Aunt Sally, again adding and subtracting. And I see a lot of people go wrong here. They'll see an easy part right here and they'll go, oh, 18 plus 3 is 21, and they'll do that. No, you can't do that. It's got to work from left to right. You have to do 20 minus 18 first. It's 2 plus 3, and then 2 plus 3 is 5. If you do this correctly, ladies and gentlemen, you'll get what I like to call a little tornado effect, where this thing just gets all the way down to just a nice little twister there.
That's what I did.
That's very nice if you did it that way. Now, there's a bunch of different examples. Let's do one more because this one gets a little goofy because it's grouping symbols inside of grouping symbols. 10 minus, oh, look, it is a brace. A brace. And then 8 minus a bracket. 6 minus a parenthesis. 5 minus 3. Boom, boom, boom. Now, as you look at this, children, I think it's a good idea for you kind of take an overall view of the whole problem and kind of get a general feel for it. When I look at this, I say to myself, okay, the very last thing I'm going to do, because all this stuff is in a grouping symbol, I need to get all this down to one number. The very last thing I'm going to do is take 10 minus some number here. Did I write something down wrong? Okay, now you're going to have to wait. So Zach, you can sit there and wave your hands, but I really won't call you because I'm going to do it all out here. Okay? The very last thing I'm going to do is take 10 minus whatever this is because of this grouping symbol. Okay? Now, inside of grouping symbols, you have to work order of operations inside of grouping symbols as well. So inside this grouping symbol, what do I have to do? The grouping symbol inside the grouping symbol. And then inside that grouping symbol, I have to do the grouping symbol inside the very first thing I'm going to do is that inner grouping symbol right there. So it's going to look like this. 10 minus the brace, 8 minus 6 minus 5 minus 2, which is, or 5 minus 3, which is 2. I've gotten rid of that parenthesis because I did that part of the problem. Now I work inside the grouping symbol, that's inside the grouping symbol there, and it's going to be 10 minus the brace, 8 minus whatever 6 minus 2 is, which is 4. Now I'm down to just that one grouping symbol. 10 minus 8 minus 4 is 4, and then 10 minus 4 is 6. And again, you kind of get the old formatting effect there. Skipping steps is, you know, most of you are just not at that place where that's a good thing for you to try. One more. Maybe I'll let you try this one. Actually, I think we did one that's probably like this last year. 3 plus 3 times 3 minus 3 divided by 3. Go ahead and see what you get for an answer for that. 3 plus 3 times 3 minus 3 divided by 3. Oh. Have we done absolute values? Did we do absolute values this year? Yes or no? And after all the proverbial smoke clears, Alex says 11. Am I disagreeing with that?
I'm not.
Sam is, what's Sam saying? Sam says 0. Let's
I
take a
guess.
see. First of all, no parentheses, no exponents, so we start with multiplication division from left to right. First one you come to is that, so it ends up being 3 plus 9.
Wait.
And then division there, minus 3 divided by 3, which is 1. Then we have addition, subtraction from left to right. 3 plus 9 is 12. 12 minus 1 is.
Oh, yeah, you just
I did the addition for
Write down this example. 12 times 12 over 3 plus 3. Okay? And like I said before, a fraction line is also a grouping symbol. And that means when you do parentheses or whatever, that means you have to get this top. You have to do this, get it down to one number, and then do this and get it down to one number, and then you can do the division part of it. So 12 times 12 is 144. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then you can take 6 into 144, which is what? 24.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing is true for this. Please be careful with this. An absolute value sign, which this is. Those are grouping symbols as well. Okay? Some people look at this and they go, oh, that should be 12 or 2 plus 7 because absolute values make everything inside them positive. That's not the way it works. You must simplify or combine these first before you do the absolute value of them. So it's going to be 2 minus 7, which is a negative 5, and then you can take its absolute value, which is a positive 5. Okay? Do not make this positive and make that positive and then add 2 plus 7 and get 9. You must work everything inside down to one number and then take its absolute value. So much time, so little to do. Perfect.